Now, our next panel will explore how open banking and embedded finance are paving the way for a more inclusive financial ecosystem. Let's meet our distinguished panelists. And I love it because they all have interesting names. They've come from abroad, some of them. So first, let's introduce Paulo Goulão. Mr. Paulo Goulão, did I say your name right? Yes, I did. He is the partner integration in open banking for Bring. Next up, we have Tariq Sened. He is Chief Financial Officer of Tarabut Gateway. And also the lovely Mr. Santiago Duro, who I met earlier outside, and we had a lovely chat. Hello, Santiago. And he is the Chief Product Officer for Fintech Galaxy. Now, directing us through this valuable discussion, our moderator is Dania Alshowaikh, co-founder of Daleel. Together, we will explore how these strategies are driving financial exclusive forward, making a meaningful impact on individuals and communities worldwide.
For today's panel, we will be discussing the role that open banking and embedded finance play in terms of advancing financial inclusion, and how can it really break down barriers and open up the sector to unserved and underserved populations. So let me start off with you, Santiago. Maybe you can tell us more about how open banking and embedded finance can actually play a role in this cause, and what are the key benefits that it offers.
Okay, yeah, let me start a little bit by explaining what is open finance, this strange thing. So open finance is basically giving access to financial services to third-party providers. And these services are like data, so the customer data, so they can access to their data whenever they want, not only at the banks and financial institutions. They can access account information. They can also make payments, initiate payments. And then on embedded finance, what is this embedded finance? Embedded finance is very simple also. It's integrating financial services in the everyday life of the people. So it's integrating it in the e-commerce, if you're using e-commerce or if you're using a delivery platform. Anywhere that you are, that's where it is. Now, when we talk about financial inclusion, for me, financial inclusion has three main challenges. One is education. So the people everybody needs to be educated about what it is, what are financial services, how can I access them, where do I access them, and etc. The second one is accessibility. Everybody needs to have access. It's not easy. Not everybody has a branch next door. Not everybody has a phone with all the applications to do it. So access to it. And the third one is affordability. Not everybody can afford to pay the fees. Not everybody can afford to access the bank services. So how does it help on the open banking and embedded finance? On the free access on education, because when you extend it with third-party providers and with any other provider that are not financial institutions, you extend the education. They see it on their everyday life, so they get more used to it and they know how to use it. On the affordability, is because you can create new business models that go beyond what the financial institutions do. If you give them access, the financial models can allow for lower fees, for easy access also. And then finally, accessibility through this, through being everywhere and making it easy and with affordability, then everybody can access and then it's better for financial inclusion.
Absolutely. We all have hopes for
Yes.
that. But I think trust also plays a big factor. Do customers trust it? What in terms of security? So I think the regulator plays a big role in that. And we obviously know that open banking in Bahrain, the Central Bank of Bahrain was the first to come out with the open banking regulations in 2018 in the MENA region. So maybe Tariq, you can shed light on what does the role of the regulator here plays out and how can it help in the implementation of open banking for financial inclusion?
The role of the regulator is extremely important. And the reason that it's extremely important is it actually sets a framework that everybody works towards. Let's think about standards and how to accelerate doing something. If everybody is doing their own thing, it becomes very difficult, right, for any fintech to come in and try to, manage everybody's differences. And the way what we've seen specifically, with Bahrain starting, we're seeing it in Saudi, we're seeing it in the region start, is the countries like Bahrain that started this actually have a more developed ecosystem on the open banking rails. and actually can start to develop new use cases. We have one of the, our first, I would say, data use case we worked on in collaboration here on a micro lending space, which is great because that, again, as you said, it starts to bring financial inclusion to people that cannot access, high ticket loan and credits. So the regulator enables a faster execution in the market. It enables a level playing field for everybody to start operating on. And it also safeguards the consumer, right? We are accessing people's information. We are accessing financial data, etc. So the importance of the regulator cannot be underestimated. The industry, in my opinion, doesn't flourish until it happens. And we've seen it in other countries in the GCC who are later to come into this, where there's nothing to build on top of for a lot of people that are wanting to get into the fintech space. So the regulator is actually the fuel that actually ignites a lot of the innovation, right, by creating these frameworks that we all live to in terms of standards, and it enables the interconnectivity because the standard is the same.
That's an interesting point. I mean, traditionally, regulators used to be looked at as they're inhibiting innovation. But I think in Bahrain's case, they're the ones that are fueling it, as you said. And I think from personal experience as well, that trust again plays a big role. So if you go and work with whether it's financial institutions or banks or even to BTC customers, when they know that you are regulated by the Central Bank of Bahrain, that conversation changes. Which brings me to my third question, Paulo. What is the role of partnerships in this cause between the fintech startups, the financial institutions, the banks, and other stakeholders as well? What role does it play?
Thanks, Dania, for the question, and good morning, everyone. So partnerships, I think, is the word right now in the open banking paradigm that you are living. Relationships, basically connecting the dots between all parties. Okay, so talking about things like open APIs, or let's say not to going into technical detail, just open banking is causing major disruption in banks these days that are that have full control until now, or until some time ago, of all the information. So on the other hand, we have the startup fintechs that are providing innovation, technology, and in the end of the day, providing new services for customers. So this is where the opportunity is. So for the traditional financial institutions to partner with the startup fintechs and also let's say the big techs like the ones that we all know, like Amazon, the Googles, the Apples, for instance, to get the best of breed services. Okay, so what I consider is that the partnerships in the end of the day, and this is real, we are watching this now in several geos around the world, let's say, are completely enablers to providing best services for customers in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. But I have a wild card question for you guys. We didn't rehearse this, so they might be surprised about this question. But do you think that the stakeholders within the ecosystem are open to partnerships? Did you see maybe a difference between before and now, how the conversations are changing? I definitely saw it, so maybe any of you guys want to comment on it.
Yeah, I think it's little by little. We can see some difference, you know. So at the very beginning, the banks especially and the financial institutions were they didn't really want to do it so much because they didn't understand it, and it is more about awareness and understanding than more not willing to. No? Now that they understand it better and that they see that there could be a benefit also for their side, is when they're starting to open more. But there is still a long way to go, a long way.
Yeah.
I think I think there's a long way to go in terms of education, right?
Yes.
The reality is this is not the easiest thing to understand. I think that's a reality that we face. People don't necessarily see the use cases, understand how this is all working. It's a lot of things that happen in the background. So it's a very hard sector to get into. Once you're in it, it's a little bit easier to understand. And I think at the moment what's happening is people are starting to see the use cases start to come up, and that will start to fuel the partnerships that we actually need for this to grow. But it's really enabling key use cases where people see the benefit, and we're getting there, right? And people are starting to see the benefit.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think as well, if we're being honest on today's panel, is education is one aspect of it. But I think that there's a mindset shift that needs to happen where the role of open banking is, and we're having conversations with some of the colleagues, it shouldn't be looked at as a cost from a compliance perspective. The conversation should change in terms of how can we monetize this? How can actually this makes money and really affect the bottom line within these banks and financial institutions, which probably right now we're just starting to see. And I think, Tariq, you touched upon use cases. Maybe you can get in more into that, into what are the use cases that we're actually seeing today on the ground?
Actual use cases that we're seeing today on the ground are microfinancing, the ability to share information to ease of life. Example, at the moment, everybody needs to provide a 3 months bank statement for a visa or for applying for a credit card. You need to drop the cost to serve, right? And also the speed and accuracy and reliance without fraud of that piece of data. That's open banking, right? So those are key, simple things for people to understand as a use case. And in terms of getting the financial inclusion, what we've seen in other parts of the world is that you are able to lower the cost to serve to the lowest cost possible utilizing the rails of open banking. And what that means is you can start to offer people, and if you think about it as a big financial institution, they may find this very expensive to serve somebody who is earning a very low income or anything of that sort, right? In terms of acquiring them, keeping them, etc. As soon as you move that digitally, your cost to serve drops, right? And therefore, that's how you get financial inclusion starting to happen. And these use cases at the moment are still nascent. I think we're seeing a lot happening in the UK because it's been there for a longer period of time. And we're going to start to see that really start to develop here, inshallah, very soon, as we already are. But those are the types of use cases that we're seeing. And also they're going beyond the fintech sector. Right? We're seeing use cases where government, for example, are able to avoid fraud with regards to government subsidies and all of these types of things. So more interesting things are starting to happen as and use cases will be developed, I believe, in the future.
What about the use cases in Bahrain, though? Even if it doesn't include financial inclusion, what are the use cases that we're seeing on the ground?
The use cases are at the moment still nascent. Okay, I can say the journey in Bahrain has been 2 years. We have everybody pretty much complying right now, and now it's starting to build on top, right? Like one of the use cases, I think, one of our colleagues, which we just did an announcement yesterday, is Flus is for me a great use case where if you are utilizing that facility, you're able to get a small microloan very quickly, instantly, etc. That's a very simple but very powerful use case, right? And we'll see more of those use cases built on open banking development.
Thank you for that. I think a lot of my colleagues and people in the industry, a lot of them have questions around adoption of open banking. What's stopping us from really kind of seeing the big numbers? Maybe Santiago, you can touch upon that. What are the challenges that we have on the ground that stand in the way?
Yes, definitely. And I think we touched about most of them already. So the first one will be on the regulation. And it's not only about regulation, it's fragmentation in the MENA region. So if we talk about the MENA region, every country is developing its own regulation. So it's not one, like for example in Europe, that there is one regulation across, and this makes it much easier. So what happens with this regulation when it's fragmented, it's very hard, or it's much harder for the players like open banking players or embedded finance or any other player or even the TPPs to adhere to these regulations. So that's one. The other one is awareness. So people are afraid that as things are not known, as it is not well understood, they don't know if it's going to be secure, if your data, the customer data is secure, or who are these players that are playing with my data. So all this is about awareness that also we have to fix. And then there are other challenges across the region, but the good thing is that the region is growing and growing, and it's supposed to become about 25% of the population will be using MENA. I'm talking about MENA will be using open banking services in 2025 or so.
Okay, let me just get into that a bit more. You mentioned a couple of challenges. Pick your best one, the biggest challenge, so that we can focus on it.
Yes, I mentioned two, and then the third one, which I didn't mention, is the partnership, because we touch it also. No, it is also getting everybody in the industry to play along and to work on the same role. So this is a big one to make everybody understand it. And like Tariq was saying, no, this is something that we really need, all of us. But the regulation, the fragmentation, if somehow we can unify it, and MENA can get some agreements to unify some of the regulation, it will really help all of us to make it
scalability of fintech services.
Scalability, everything. So the use cases, setting the lessons that we learn from one country into another, all of this.
So these corridors between these different countries, right?
Yes. Exactly.
Definitely. I second that. That is the challenge we should be focusing on. To you, Paulo, we've been talking a lot about what's happening on the ground today, but can you paint us a picture on what we can expect in the future?
Yeah, sure. In one way, the future is already here, right? Because with the rise of the digital banking journey, so the customer can access their bank account, their services anywhere, anytime, right? So the digital banking is on track to be the industry standard. Let's say like this. So that's fine. Then, if we can imagine that we enter in a bank in 2040 or 2050, let's say we don't have a crystal ball, right? But what we expect, and many executives expect, is that the banks will start to use advanced data analytics, okay, to give or to provide the customers super hyper personalized offers and products. Okay, that's almost for sure, because it's where the industry is going, and that's where we're seeing, and that we believe in all over the world. Let's say then there are other interesting things that many of us believe that are in the industry, like for instance the super interesting human-less banking. Okay, and this concept, a customer can be the only human. It's a funny word saying in this context, but can be the only human entering in a bank and doing with the help of technology, because the technology is always present in here or in the evolution, can be for instance, asking for a loan, okay, and just pressing a button, and a simple button, and then the AI, robotics, etc., can go through their history, doing an analysis, seeing that if the customer applies, it's okay to get the loan, and then in the end of the day, even transfer almost automatically the money to his account. Okay, things like this that we foresee that will happen in, I don't know, 20, 25 years. Just to end on the payment side, wearables like our phones and watches and things are also expect to be more and more present in our lives as well. So these are just some ideas that you can see, I think.
What I'm excited the most, even though no one asked, is hyper-personalization within the financial services sector. And I hope I don't get in trouble with the organizers for promoting the startup I co-founded. But in Daleel, we're honestly working day in and day out to make sure that hyper-personalization is a reality. It's not something we can expect in the future, but it's something we can expect hopefully by next year, first quarter. So wait for our updates. But I think just to wrap up the session, There is open banking obviously on a global scale, and there's a lot of markets that have adopted open banking and embedded finance. What are the learnings that we can pick up from other markets, and what can we implement here?
Okay, so like I was mentioning before, for example, if you look at the European Union, the EU, what they did is centralize everything, and it's standard across. So they did the PSD2 regulation, so they protect, so they can show that they show that they protect the data of the customer, and at the same time, it's a standard regulation across. So that's one of the lessons that we can learn here also to see how, like I was mentioning before, is going into the same type of story, and this one.
I think the biggest thing is transparency is going to be very important. And what we need to enable in that transparency is we need to hold the fintechs, the people like Tarabut, everybody kind of accountable to deliver things, and make it clear. Is it working? Is it not? Etc. I think that will enable everybody to be pushing forward open banking further.
Right, Paulo?
That's it. I agree. So more and more, this is an exciting time to be here and to see this evolution. So in different years, we have already have things that help the life of people. Let's say like this. We have in Europe. I was commenting that I live in South America for some time. We have also apps and things that already exist and that can be that we can bring in here the experience. All these things we are seeing in the world. The digital banking, like I said before. So super exciting time to exist all these to see. Yeah.
Definitely an exciting time for all of us here. Thank you.